Hurricane Arthur may have caused some activities to be canceled over the holiday weekend, but Barnstable came out of the storm largely unscathed. School may be out for summer, but work continues for school administrators, and a new training program at Cape Cod Community College is getting some state support. These stories and more on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Monday, July 7th, 2014. I'm Sarah Mannel. Hurricane Arthur put a damper on some 4th of July events. Town manager Tom Lynch talked about why they chose to cancel certain events and about cleaning up after the storm with Barnstable This Morning host Sarah Colvin.
We were in constant contact with the DPW, which monitors weather very carefully. We also were in contact with our fireworks display folks, and they had said early on that captains and boat owners were concerned about moving the barges into the location, and they were just concerned about the impending hurricane that was coming up the coast. We had been, as you might expect, making preparations for the hurricane all the way along. I had been in contact with the Department of Public Works because they put together teams that are going to be going out to deal with any sort of downed trees or limbs, and also be looking at flooding areas. And that was one concern that we began to realize was going to hit us a little more than we thought. We knew there would be rain, but as it kept inching closer to Nantucket, we knew that there might be additional parts of rain. So on July 4th, when I got up and it was fairly clear, the clouds started coming in, I knew we might get in some of the morning parades, and went over to Barnstable Village. The Barnstable West Barnstable will have their annual 4th of July parade. That came off pretty much without a hitch, a few sprinkles, but that worked out quite well. I was leaving that parade and I bumped into Sean O'Brien, who's the emergency management coordinator over for Barnstable County, and I said that I had just been informed that Cotuit had canceled their parade, and he said, well, I think that's a good decision because my wife is coming over the bridge and there's a great deal of rain in the Buzzards Bay area. Well, that seemed to hold off from us, and the weather reports we saw later, of course, after the fact, were how it came up through New Bedford along that way, and they got 5, 6, 7 inches of rain, but Cotuit canceled. Hyannisport was able to do their parade, and Centerville had canceled, and of course Hyannis. So once the rains came in, I was getting updates from Marine Environmental Affairs. One of the areas, I saw the photo that you had earlier, that spectacular picture on Sandy Neck. And, we had made arrangements and actually did a recommendation that campers may want to leave the beach because of the tidal flow that was coming in. And we had made arrangements to have the school parking lots be used to accommodate the campers overnight.
Right.
And some took advantage of that. A few came off. I think most just weathered the storm in place. And as you pointed out, we're maintaining that spot for the beautiful weekend that was to come. The aftermath of the storm was that we had, actually during the storm too, we had help with pumping out of several boats. There was, the Coast Guard brought one boat over to Blish Point that Marine Environmental Affairs and the Harbor Master's Office supported and helped. There were swampings and really just about Lewis Bay, the 3 bays, and Barnstable and Millway. So practically all of the areas, there were some boats that were swamped that needed assistance.
And Lynch says he is thankful that the town weathered the storm well and escaped any major damage. Barnstable Public Schools welcomes 2 new administrators this week. Superintendent of Schools Dr. Mary Schakowsky says Kristen Harmon, the new assistant superintendent, and Mary Sullivan, the new principal at Barnstable United Elementary School, will take over their roles today.
Kind of like the first day for kids when they come back. For administrators, it's the same thing. It's a new opportunity, a new job. They don't know what they don't know until they actually start in the job and start in the role. So, and with all the new administrators this year, we're planning a new administrator orientation, which is actually a first for Barnstable because we do have so many new administrators. It's going to happen August 19th, where, sometimes a new administrator coming into the district, just getting the lay of the land as far as what forms to use and who to contact and what to submit, and, it really is very, very new for them. So we've put together a new orientation packet for them that we'll be meeting with on the 19th, and having human resources come in and talk for a little bit, having our ELL director come in and speak a little bit. So all these areas that are just, Gareth come in and talk about the budget that are just so unfamiliar, because it's even though that they may have experience, and Mary does in another school system, Kristen does not have any experience in central office or being an administrator, even though she's been in the district for a number of years. So we're really excited about having them come on board and welcome them, and I know Marie's been terrific with the transition with Kristen.
Zhikowski says this summer staff will also focus on preparing documents for a district-wide review.
Every 10 years, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education takes what's called a district and school accountability review. And they come in and they look at, they spend 3 or 4 days. Although, I question, because the amount of work it's going to require to prepare these documents. There's a written report afterwards, but there's no follow-up similar to the NEAS report or the accreditation, where they then come in and, make some recommendations, commendations, those sorts of things. With this district review, it's really more a reflection of how we are doing as a district, which we do on a regular basis, okay? We reflect upon our practices, our programs, but this is an external review. So they'll come in and they'll spend 4 days in the district, and they'll interview school committee, they'll interview teachers, they'll interview students, they'll interview parents, and they review you in 6 different areas, what they call 6 standards, and it ranges from leadership and governance to school student services, human resources. And so in the summer months, what we're doing is we're preparing all of the documents so that they can come in and review them during that 4-day period. It's quite extensive. It requires a lot of, manpower to do that. But, we're looking forward to the review. We met with the team from the Department of Ed right before school ended. And so we're ready for the review.
Zhikowski says the district review is scheduled for October 14th through the 17th. $2 million in the recently passed state budget will help Cape Cod Community College launch a new training program. Director of Communications Michael Gross says the money will fund the college's new airframe and power plant maintenance certification program.
People who would go through and repair, inspect, certify airplanes and their power plants for almost any aircraft company, and we would do it right here at Barnstable. Dr. Cox last year went out to the West Coast in a conference and took a tour through a community college's training center that was affiliated with Boeing right there on the West Coast, and found this was something incredibly needed throughout the United States. The vast majority of airplane manufacturers work with the airlines and end up having to have these ongoing certifications done, in many cases offshore, because there are not enough facilities to inspect and repair airplanes. The FAA has very, very strict regulations that after so many hours in the air, after so many takeoffs and landings, every single aircraft must be inspected front to back very, very carefully, and maintenance performed that has to be done very, very specifically. The same is true with the engines. X number of hours of operation, they need to be very, very carefully maintained. And this is a very, very specialized, highly specific kind of training that needs to be done and supervised by very fine trained people. It's very expensive, and it was not something that we really could mount ourselves.
Gross says the program is scheduled to begin next January. Well, be sure to tune into our hour-long news program weekdays at 7 a.m. On tomorrow's show, we'll chat with Police Chief Paul McDonald and learn more about the Barnstable Economic Development Commission with Chair Chris Kehoe. Plus, we'll have all the news and information you need. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mannel.